Okay, today we're gonna make a 3-tier composting worm bin. So it's gonna be a little worm farm, and we're using 2 10 gallons, the 2 darker blue, and then 1 18-gallon tote. They are the Rubbermaid Roughneck. These are ones I already had around, but the Roughneck tend to be just a little more sturdier, and I think you know, that the red wigglers are a little bit heavy with all the compost in there. So in our number 1 tote, the very top tote, and the number 2 tote, these 2 totes you're going to want to put 1/4 inch holes in the bottom, because you're going to have your worms in this number 2 tote. When they get done composting and everything's composted and broke down in here, then you're going to move your food source up to your number 1 tote. When it's moved up to number 1, the worms will crawl through the holes and go to your number 1 bin. Then you can take the number 2 bin and use that as compost, and then go ahead and put it on top again. And so your worms are living in your second layer, but you need to have 1/4 inch holes in both your number 1 and your number 2 tote. In your number 3 tote, you are simply going to have a drainage spigot down here, if you would like, so that you can drain your worm tea into a bucket or something. So you want to go ahead and turn over number 1 and number 2 so that he's kind of already did this. Had a little camera malfunction. You only need 1 tote lid. You will only ever be using 1 tote lid. So you can see here where we have drilled 1/4 inch holes, enough for the worms, big enough for the worms to travel, so that they can leave number 2 tote and go into number 1 tote. Okay, so number 1 and number 2 have those 1/4 inch holes in them, and now you're simply going to put air holes around the edges. So these need to be smaller. This is literally like, what, 1/8 inch drill bit or something like that. Ones that your worms are not going to come out of, it's just simply going to be air holes, so that there's plenty of ventilation around the edges of tote number 1 and tote number 2. All right, and you want to put plenty of these so that there's plenty of air. Oh, we're going to put them like 1/2 inch apart. So we'll go ahead and finish that up, but we're going to do number 1 and number 2 with 1/8 inch little air holes all the way around. Okay, so now they have their air holes all around tote number 1 and tote number 2. You can see we just have, and these are the like 1/8 inch air holes, so the worms won't come out of these. So now we're ready to layer like their bedding and what they're going to eat. So you want to have a good piece of cardboard, they say, in the bottom, so that the worms don't go down through there. That's like their barrier, sort of. And then next, just a little bit, Lauren, all this is going to be damp like a sponge. So the first layer, we put the cardboard down, and now we have damp paper. So we're putting in the paper, and they're going to put down the layer of paper. So after the wet, we'll go ahead and put in the leaves, and we'll all sprinkle this down so it's nice and damp, just like a damp sponge. And then after the leaves, we're going to put in some compost, so that has the beneficial bacteria. Make sure it's all good and